Ooh, long time no see, camper. 久しぶりだね。元気ですか? So, Dune. Dune. There we go. That's a little better, right? I don't have the first Dune book because I let somebody borrow it so they could read it before the book. But they haven't even read it. They don't even like it. Like, Jesus. The things you do for people, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully Dune doesn't need an introduction, okay? The book is amazing. You should read it. You should all read it. If you're into science fiction at all and books both at the same time, you should read it. It's like being really into fantasy books but never having read Lord of the Rings or being interested in reading it at least. You know, like what are you doing? What is your story? I'd like to know, please contact me. But perhaps what's more interesting about Dune, besides it being an amazing book, is the plethora of failed film adaptations that have been thrown at this thing by heckin' geniuses who should have by all rights pulled it off in stunning style and grace and machismo. Jodorowsky, David Lynch, others maybe. I don't know. I really only know about the first two. That doesn't really sound like a plethora anymore. But you get my point. Jodorowsky's Dune never even got off the ground on that one. That one just blew up. David Lynch came out, and it was Spy Kids before Spy Kids was a thing. I'm pretty sure if you were to ask Robert Rodriguez what his inspiration was for like the tone and the special effects of his movies in that era, it would be David Lynch's Dune. And that movie just makes absolutely no sense. It's like a miracle that it even ever happened. I'd love to do a whole video just about that. Jesus Christ. But today's video, children, isn't about that. Today's video, it's one of the good stories. One of the few amazing examples of the movie industry in Hollywood doing something right for once. For once! Because every now and then, there's just the perfect director for this kind of thing. The demand's there, the director comes up, he's interested in the project, he's passionate about filmmaking itself. In the early 2000s, you had Peter Jackson popping out Lord of the Rings, one of the most beautiful and operatic tributes to the film industry, to the film medium to ever happen. And just like Jackson received divine inspiration from God to adapt Lord of the Rings into one of the greatest movies series ever made, something similar just happened just last weekend. Yeah, I'm already getting it all out there. Denis Villeneuve is a genius. And a prophet? He's not a prophet. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe he's like the Kwisatz Haderach of filmmaking. He's the chosen one, our great savior. That we can be proud of being Dune fans to the normies finally. We can go see. Look, it's cool. It's got Timothy Chalamet, and the Avengers are in it. Multiple Avengers, somehow, and Dave Bautista, and it's got Oscar Isaac. Everybody loves Oscar Isaac. Thank you. So Dune is essentially like a Shakespearean feudal drama play, but set in space and with like incredibly deep science fiction lore. Like, okay, yeah, sure, technology has advanced a ton, but we're still gonna use swords, and society has advanced a lot, but we haven't gotten basically anywhere. We've actually regressed into the Middle Ages with kings and lords and feudalism. Dune is really pretty cynical in that way. And like it uses that lore to discuss and sort of look over different political theories and ideologies, as well as like how would these huge dynamic power structures use religion to their advantage and mysticism to their advantage, especially when also in this world that kind of stuff kind of sort of exists in a substance called the spice. And spice only exists on this one planet, which is called Arrakis, and it's like this sandy desert hellscape that hardly anything can survive in. And anyone who controls Arrakis and can therefore get the spice from that planet is the most powerful entity within the universal space empire. And so here we have Paul, and he's the heir to the least awful feudal house within this whole system. They are being sent to take over Arrakis from the Harkonnens, who are extremely exploitative and cruel to the indigenous people of the planet, and they're basically slave drivers in their methods to obtaining the spice. And so they're sending Paul and his house, the Atreides, to Arrakis to try and set up a more peaceful solution there. That's sort of the whole setup, except that also Paul, he's like maybe special, maybe he's the chosen one. He's a special little boy. You know how these stories go, right? There's fantasy elements sort of masquerading as futuristic sci-fi tropes. Like, sure, you can kind of read into the future and have prescience, but it's caused by a very real ecological spice. It's basically drugs, but like space drugs that work. You actually fully need them to do any sort of space exploration at all. So the spice is very sought after because at that point you have a monopoly on travel, which means you have a monopoly on trade, which means you have a monopoly on the money, and the money is the power. It's that simple. So I was actually really surprised at just how faithful this adaptation is. I mean, even knowing Denis Villeneuve and how rigorous of a filmmaker he is, I was really surprised to see the level of detail and like the commitment to including as many scenes as possible from the book. I thought you'd have to change more things to make a proper Dune movie in just 2.5 hours. In the title sequence, it does say that this is only part one. There's a lot in the book. It's very densely compacted. Frank Herbert, he's very economical with his language. He doesn't really write like anyone else that I know of. But it's really impressive and it shows how in tune Villeneuve is to the Dune fan base and what we've been asking for all this time. All the complaints that were lodged against the David Lynch adaptation and the critiques that people had of the proposed Hodorowski interpretation. Even though that one they don't even start shooting on that one. I don't think there's like a whole documentary about it, but I've never seen it. I've only seen images and art from it, and it looks super super awesome. I wish we could have gotten Hodorowski's art with Denis Villeneuve directing. I think that could have been really fun. But those designs, they do look pretty dated compared to like modern standards of what we expect in sci-fi. Not that I didn't love the way things look. I especially love the way still suits look and like the Sardaukars battle garb. They look like hyper-tech industrial Power Rangers, and it's just super awesome. They did an amazing job with the art direction in this movie, too. I don't want to act like the Hodorowski one was the superior ultimatum of Dune. This interpretation is just as valid and just as awesome, to be honest. I don't want to talk too much about spoilers. Like I sort of set up the backstory and the lore more, and I don't consider that as much of a spoiler. As far as casting goes, I think they really knocked it completely out of the park. I thought it might be strange to see Timothée Chalamet in something like this. And Dave Bautista, if that's how you pronounce his name, I'm not sure. Just because, like, to me, Timothée Chalamet is the guy from Call Me By Your Name. With a lot of these actors, it sort of has like the Brad Pitt effect where I just see that person as the actor playing a character, and I sort of struggle to see the actual character work that's being done. But I don't even know if it's fair to say that was even a problem here because I was so invested in the pacing and the music and the actual plot and what's going on that I didn't really have time to always look at the characters and make that weird connection. I think the weirdest one probably was Aquaman being there because he's Aquaman. Yep. I remember thinking of that god awful Justice League movie while I was watching this, and it's not something you want to think of when you're watching an actually good movie. The cinematography was killer. This is a movie where you could take every single frame from the movie and sell it as a poster for people's walls. Like, it's that pretty. If you've seen Blade Runner 2049 or any of his other movies, you can pretty much expect that every single scene has something creative going on in it, like something that's really visually interesting and impressive. And I love to see that kind of attention to detail and like love and care go into a movie. If I had like a serious criticism to levy against it, and this is probably the only one that comes to mind, is that it still feels like certain scenes and certain moments were still being rushed through. Like despite the 2.5 hour running time and the fact that this is the first part of a presumably two-part series, there were certain scenes that I really liked in the book that were shortened or compacted with another scene that it would have been nice to see them. It would have been nice to see them fully fleshed out and given the character details that we learn through those scenes, because I know they aren't important to the overall plot of the book, but as a fan, it still would have been nice. That being said, this is like a extremely high recommendation from me. I wish I could have seen this in theaters. I think if you have the opportunity to do so safely, you should definitely go, as opposed to watching it on HBO Max like I did. or sign up for HBO Max, you know, a free trial just for this movie would be absolutely worth it. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 for now. I think as I rewatch it more, and especially if when I get the chance to watch it in context with the next movie, I'll be able to, you know, pick a number more solidly. But for now, just 9 out of 10, an absolutely must watch for anyone who likes movies. But yeah, I'm just really excited to watch more from this franchise and talk about it here. You know, at least one more movie of this quality. I'd be so stoked, and I can just, you know, review it as a total package. That'd be work. That'd be what's up. Anyway, thanks for watching. I just moved. The last place that I lived, you know, it wasn't the greatest for recording anytime that I wanted to. So hopefully, I'll make more videos now. Maybe not, but hopefully. Until I see you next time, stay cool.